Bernard Graciet, huge conference. The level of interest in this subject seems to be going up year by year.
Look, first of all, let me say that we are very happy to have around 1,000 people here. 6 or 7 years ago, we would not have that crowd at all, because in those days, we were asking ourselves in Europe, do we need a potent agriculture? Do we need an agriculture at all? Then the food crisis in developed world and developing world has been a step change in the thinking. And we see, although today, many think tanks, NGOs, governments, private businesses have different views about what to do, but there is now a common agreement that, first of all, we can feed the planet. In 2050, we can feed 9 million people without destroying the environment in a sustainable way, provided, of course, we give farmers access to technologies. If we can do that, we can solve that first problem. The second one now is how to adapt to climate change, because we need to increase the yield, productivity, we need to increase harvest on the land we cultivate at the moment. Otherwise, we might have to need more hectares, and we believe that is unnecessary to clear and to claim much more land in the long-term future. What worries us a little bit is not really the long-term future, because there is agreement and money will go into research, etc. What would worry us is what happens if in 2 or 3 years' time we have another drought in several parts of the world, and then we go into another round of price increase in the West, a scarcity or food access crisis in the developing world. Therefore, we see a necessity for the world to get more organized for the short, medium term, whereas the long term seems to be better taken into account. So as far as Syngenta is concerned, we are very pleased to have all these different type of interest represented here, and we hope that at the end of the day, at the end of all these debates, we can have a sort of common agreement that the direction taken in the future for the CAP reform in particular takes into account the fact that Europe is a key player, whether we like it or not, in feeding the world tomorrow. We cannot imagine a Europe completely closed on itself and being selfish vis-à-vis the rest of the world.
Because Commissioner John Daly has recently given approval to the Amphora potato. It's not for eating, of course, it's for industry. It's to produce a particular kind of starch that's used in paper and textiles and glue making and various other things. It's the first one in 12 years. How significant is that? Could it lead to further approvals in the future?
We hope. We've been all pleased, certainly, to see that this file that had been blocked in the system for so many years is now cleared, at least at Brussels level. At country level, that's another discussion. But we hope that at least all the files that are in the pipeline are progressively cleared, so that we can sort one day production growing crops in Europe, GM crops in Europe, but above all we have to solve the problem of imports of GM foodstuff and feedstuff from the rest of the world, which desperately Europe needs, because we know how dependent we are on US soya or Brazilian soya, etc. We have to make sure that we can import all the necessary feed and food that we need in Europe, which is for the moment slowed down or even stopped due to this lack of agreement on the low-level presence of GMs.
How concerned are you by the fact that Mr. Sarkozy has indicated that, for instance, France might be willing to be more flexible on the single farm payment, on reform of the CAP generally, in return for ensuring that all foods imported into Europe meet European standards? Does that threaten the access to GM crops grown elsewhere?
I think, first of all, we all rejoice, and I certainly rejoice to see that France is generally now coming down to earth and trying to realize that if you keep hurting agriculture as it has been hurted in the past years, then you have to pay a price for it. Therefore, what was said by the President in the Salon de l'Agriculture and what is said and done by Minister Le Maire in his new function is certainly a turning point in French policy, because we cannot keep saying on one side. France will be a low input agriculture and will continue to feed parts of Africa. You cannot have it both ways. For France will remain and wants to remain an important player in agriculture. Now, regarding the GM files, France has put together une haute autorité to discuss the science and the social issues. We'll wait for these two parts of the authority to find a common ground before we can add anything else on that. But globally, we are certainly pleased to see that common sense is taking place.
We've got the Common Agricultural Policy coming up for a review for reform totally in 2013. What would you like it to contain? I mean, there's a lot of talk about sustainability, environmental protection, providing a living obviously for the farmers. What do you feel it should contain?
Certainly the first aim remained, and it is in the Lisbon Treaty, that the first vocation of the Common Agricultural Policy is to feed the Europeans. And I think we should take no chance with this. We paid high prices for this a long time ago. Now this is something we've taken as granted. We never know and we have to protect this. But certainly in Europe, the agricultural model, which is specific to Europe, with family farms and having farmers who at the same time produce goods, food and feed and meat, and at the same time provide a good and clean environment for leisure or just for allowing nature to flower again is something certainly we are very much in favor. Now, to do that, we have to be clever in the way we use technologies. You know, we in Syngenta have done a lot of work about how to reconcile on farms, ecologically intensively farmed, we can have at the same time very nice wildlife, flora and fauna, and a good yield on cereals or sugar beet or whatever. We certainly are in favor of this mix of agriculture and biodiversity. It is perfectly feasible. There is no opposition at all between producing food and looking after the nature.
Having said that, there is a huge hill to climb in terms of persuading the European public. The NGOs are very vocal, and it's very easy to say beware Frankenstein foods, it makes good headlines. It's very much more difficult to get over the science in a way that people can understand or understand the need for.
Yeah, you know, this reminds me of the debate we had before the Lisbon Treaty. Many people were saying we want more information, more information. And vis-à-vis the Lisbon Treaty, it's already clear. There was information all over the place, very easy to find. It's a bit the same in agriculture and GM technologies, etc. And we will see with cloning and nanotechnologies, any new technology has to be put in perspective, precautions have to be taken, and every new technology and every event in one technology has to be looked in the way, for example, medicines or pesticides are looked. We have a clear regulatory approval system, and that has to be done as well for new technology, and it is the case for GMOs. And for the moment, all the GMOs presented to the authorities have been cleared from a safety point of view. Therefore, in the future, we'll see. We have to take all the events one by one. But on the global debate about society and science, we need probably to make more efforts to present the case, but we certainly need the help of the scientific community, of the governments who employ hundreds and thousands of scientists. We need a sort of a common ground about how to present in simple terms technology to the public. I don't think we need many more debates, because night and day we have debates about science and technology. We've been using biotechnology in the field for 15 years. The Americans are eating GM food from 1996 in a very big way. If that is not a good enough experiment, you know, plus the scientific community clearing the technology, what else do we need?